I'll get that stuff out later. Hey guys, we're back again. We said more stories and more truth, not just stories but truth. And we want to also talk about another subject that is becoming a nuisance or a nonsense. While some other people are impressing it, some people are not impressing it, and everyone is giving facts and whatever they think are truths on that to justify their causes. Yes, and here it's done again. So done. The environmentalists are coming up with issues and reasons to why they're saying that the world is being overpopulated, and human beings need to stop increasing. And they're trying to come up with ways, secretive ways to control the population of the world. And it's something that is other people are taking it up and other people are not taking it up. What's your advice of the same? And basing on the scriptures, because we need evidence of what we're talking about.
Yeah, we were just before we got on here, we were talking about the extreme environmental position or deep ecology position of the Genesis 1:28. It says God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth." And then it goes on to say to subdue it and rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air and every creature that crawls on the earth. So that is something that is probably not popular for an environmentalist to be in agreement with, particularly not the extreme environmentalist or the deep ecologist, because the deep ecologist and the extreme environmentalist is more likely to say man is a blight and everything man touches, it's falling apart, it's causing a decay or disintegration of the order or the environment. And so that is something that we should talk about and just look. Yeah, there's some truth in what environmentalists are saying, but could there be an extreme side that may be undermining human flourishing? And that's what we really want to look at. We want to establish some balance in this area of how do we steward the environment. And I think God's word gives us some directive there. We're more called to be more in the area of management rather than hands off. And that's where I see that one of the main distinctions is the extreme environmentalist, deep ecologist says it's better if man just doesn't touch things. If man restricts himself in his population to grow smaller and smaller and not to increase, to do less interaction with the environment, to manage less to decrease its impact instead of managing to bring human flourishing. So there's a distinction there.
So there's this thing that you said, our role as human beings on the planet Earth is to steward that which God has given us. And stewarding it doesn't mean that controlling people, remotely controlling people not to increase on the planet Earth.
Right.
But it's taking care of what is there, what God gave us, to make sure that as much as we are increasing in numbers, the environment can still sustain us. How possible is that? Because someone will say, yeah, what you just read, that was some time ago when Adam and Eve were created.
Yeah.
But now we're living in a different environment, no? It's not just Adam and Eve here in the Garden of Eden. It's Alan, Dan, James, Juan, and everywhere. And it's swelling each and every time.
8 billion people.
Yeah, 1 billion people, on a very small Earth. Okay, they call it a very small Earth. And it's like, no, we have global warming, man. Things are not getting into place as we expect them. So we have to do something and make sure that people are not increasing, but we are increasing industries. And how do we call them? Science experimental labs in each and every place that we're going, but human beings should not increase. What's your take on that?
Well, I really think that directive to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, bring human resources to the earth. Can you imagine what the earth would be like if we had even one less person, and when we consider that person's unique contribution to the earth? Every person has a unique contribution because we're all created in the image of God. We have a responsibility. We have an impact. In that impact can be a blessing. And you take, like Beethoven, who is his mother almost aborted him. What if we hadn't had Beethoven? What would we be missing? And we should be considering that with every individual on the planet Earth and every individual to come. They have a blessing that they can potentially bring, and it's us to steward that blessing through developing the leadership quality, through our leadership, developing the qualities and bringing out, calling forth from every individual the God-given gifting and development of their talents and their gifts and abilities. That should all be brought out. So to say that someone doesn't belong, that's really a seriously bad thing, I think, in my book. I think that the resources are here to to have a world of any number of people. And if you fly in an airplane and you look down on the earth, I think it's much more easily able to convince yourself that the earth could stand a lot more people. Now, I don't know, I don't really think that there's a limit. It's all a nature of stewardship. If you look at the way that Singapore and Hong Kong, particularly Singapore, changed its policies to promote human flourishing through good leadership, and a massive number of people are living there, and they're not destroying resources, they're flourishing in that place. And so there must be something else there that we're not understanding if we're saying that humans are overpopulating the earth, because we see populated places and we see people flourishing. Cities is where people flourish oftentimes, but they can also be places of extreme poverty. It really depends on how the worldview and the core beliefs and values and behaviors that come out of those core beliefs, how they're expressed in society, whether people live a life of oppression and misery, or they live a life of blessing other people. Those choices are made collectively by people who are in the case of human flourishing, they're making the right choices and they're stewarding the resources with excellence. That brings blessing. But when people make wrong choices, there's chaos and oppression. And so people need to choose whether they're going to do right or wrong. They're going to be a blessing or they're going to be a curse, or and a focus of judgment in terms of people restraining them from doing the wrong things. Um, so and our court system is set up to reward, to discipline people that aren't doing the right thing, and based on a value system, and our society is set up to hopefully to reward people who are doing the right thing. They earn income, they get recognition and rewards and blessing when people do the right thing. And sometimes it's not always apparent. Sometimes we can do the right thing, but the culture is pushing back against the right thing, so you don't see the reward in this earth. It may be in the time to come, but that doesn't mean we should shirk from our responsibilities to do the right thing.
So, if I hear you very well, you say we have responsibilities to take. One thing is what the Bible says:
Mm-hmm.
fill the earth. Two,
Mhm.
subdue it.
Mhm.
Three, steward everything that God has given you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that God has placed under you, steward it to make sure that the afterlife, the other people who are coming after you will find
Mhm.
a safer place
Mhm.
for you to stay. And the issue is not
Mhm.
controlling the human population or making people sterile, not to be able to produce or reproduce, because you feel like there is a place that we've not covered. And then you give a very good example on, if you go above the skies, you'll see very many vast lands that are unoccupied, that people are not there. And then someone comes and tells you, no, we have already overpopulated the world. So does it mean that there are some other few people who think they're so influential and they're so selfish in everything that they're doing, that they want to control the humanity for them to gain the control over everything that's happening? They want to be like gods. deciding on what me and you do, and trying to force it onto us for us to do, for them to know that to think that they're superior and they're controlling everything.
Well, control is an interesting word. Subdue is an interesting word. If you have a righteous ruler, the country is blessed. If you have somebody who is oppressive and controlling out of selfish reason, then the country is cursed. And so we find that a representative form of governance paired up with a society that holds to virtues and values and beliefs that promote human flourishing, that society, when it's paired up with a good policies and a good governance system, a representative governance system that those people choose good representatives who are knowledgeable in their areas of governance, and they can make good decisions, that society will move forward, and that nation or people group will be blessed. And so in the area of management, in terms of governance systems, in terms of economic systems, there's a need to set good policies, and then focus on what's going to be fair and just, and maximize the blessing. And I think that comes not from hands off of the environment, but looking at the environment and saying, what can we do to improve and manage? God put Adam and Eve in the garden, but he asked them in Genesis 2:15, he asked them to till it, to work it, to make it productive. And so it takes management, it takes work, it takes discipline in order to, and good planning, excellence in planning, in order to make the resources of the earth bring blessing, maximal blessing. There has to be a value added component to it that we are seeking out that brings benefit to society. And so if we just pull back and say management is bad, planning is bad, and we let the mosquitoes bring malaria and all the other diseases, and we let people be environments where it's full of parasites and everywhere around you, and you're living within that kind of environment. That's not a good environment. Where the flooding is occurring, it's not being managed and directed in good drainage systems and good foundations for houses, so they're not being swept away by landslides and floods. Those types of things can be managed, and you see societies that are managing them well, they're flourishing. But societies that are where there's no basis for taking care of those things, and they're left to the whims of the environment, they're not doing well. And so the environment is something that is managed to bring blessing. It's not something that's a hands-off thing. If we had wilderness areas everywhere, we wouldn't be able to have near the population that we have today. And we enjoy our wilderness areas because, and God's creation and His display of beauty in those wilderness areas, because we have roads and we can drive our cars and we can get a tent and we can camp and enjoy God's beauty, and we love it. But if the roads aren't there and the infrastructure is not there, and we're living hand to mouth and barely existing because we're doing hunter-gathering type of society, and we're not producing, not farming, don't have the green revolution and all of its blessings, then we don't have enough food, and we're having a starvation period, like so many tribes in South Sudan run out of food in certain places. This is something that is due to lack of management, lack of best management practices put in place.
So the problem is not the human beings that are increasing the number. The problem is on us managing the resources that God has given us. So we should not even, no one should ever think of controlling the human population on the planet Earth, but we should start these strategies and think of managing the environment around us. take care of the
Yeah.
people that are constantly increasing and filling the world and the earth as God has commanded us to do.
We need to develop those people, because when those people are developed, they actually contribute. Every individual contributes. When God wanted to bless the people of Israel, He increased their numbers. In the same way, when you have a IDPs or refugees coming into an area, if you strategize well, that those people can be they can be extended dignity in their current situation. They can develop different types of opportunities between the host community and the refugee community, and they can be increase in their productivity, and that comes from a selfless focus on the I would say the selfless focus on the needs of the other person. When that's going and in place will be a blessing to others. But when we're selfish and we focus on ourselves, we could try to control other people in ways that aren't appropriate, that aren't going to bring them blessing, that bring them oppression instead, and we remove people from their access to land and the opportunities that come from developing the products of the land, and when we remove them from opportunities to have businesses and to value add to the resources that are developed. When we diminish those opportunities, we're bringing oppression.
Thank you so much for that. It was so informative, and I believe we need to embrace all the things that you just mentioned. It's not on looking at the negativity, it's like to improve wherever is there to make sure that the other thing is surviving, even in the least of the least environments that we live in. I think that's the advice that we received today. We improve, we have to accept God's way and God's rules. One, we subdue and fill the earth. Second, we manage what God has given unto us. It's not all about doing away with humanity or decreasing the number of humanity on the planet Earth, but it's trying to manage the planet Earth to accept and provide for all the increasing number of humanity on the planet Earth. I think He deserves a clap, yeah? Thank you so much.